Good morning, students. Welcome back. Students, today I want to discuss some of the important questions for your pre-board exam. Now, you need to know the questions with answer because for the board exams, you have to prepare different types and lots of various types of questions with suitable answer. From the chapter um, cultural change means the challenges of cultural diversity. Okay, Indian society, the challenges of cultural diversity. First of all, I want to say the questions. Today I am going to discuss 2 marks or 3 marks questions. State one feature of community identity. State one feature of community identity. Students, if you want, you can write the questions also. State one feature of community identity. Or what do you mean by the community identity? Community identity is based on birth and belonging rather than on qualification or accomplishment. These kind of identities are called ascriptive. Ascriptive, not achieved. Ascriptive. That is, they are determined by the birth and do not involve any choice on the part of the individuals concerned. So, what do you mean by the community identity? Community identity is based on birth and belonging rather than on qualifications or accomplishment. These kind of identities are called ascriptive. That is, they are determined by the birth, do not involve any choice on the part of the individuals concerned. So students, if you want, you can write the question. State one feature of community identity. Now the next question is, what do you understand by regionalism? What do you understand by regionalism? Regionalism in India is rooted in India's diversity of language, culture, tribes, and religions. It is also encouraged by the geographical concentration of these identity makers in particular religion and fueled by a sense of regional deprivation. So what do you mean by the regionalism? Regionalism means the diversity of language, culture, tribes, and religions. Indian federalism has been a means of accommodating these regional sentiments. 2 marks questions you have to write in this way. Okay. Now the next question is, all the questions are very common. The questions is community identity. Community provide us the language or mother tongue and the cultural value through which we comprehend the world. It also anchors us self-identity. Community identity is based on birth, belonging rather than on some form of acquired qualifications or accomplishment. It is what we are rather than what we have become. So students, I am repeating it once again. Community provide us language or mother tongue and the cultural values through which we comprehend the world. It also builds our self-identity. Community identity is based on birth and belonging rather than some form of acquired qualification or accomplishment. It is what we are rather than what we have become. Expanding and overlapping circle of community ties like what? Like family, like kinship, like caste, ethnicity, language, region or religion give meaning to our world and give us a sense of identity of who we are. That is why people often react emotionally or even violently whenever there is a perceived threat to their community identity. Understood? Now, the next question is, it may be write a note on the nature of communalism in India. What I said? Write a note on the nature of communalism in India. Students, first of all, these types of questions you have to write the answer on, depends on point. Like that, communalism is an aggressive political ideology linked to religion. First, what I said, communalism is an aggressive political ideology linked to religion. Second, it is important to emphasize that communalism is about politics, not about religion. A communalist may or may not be a political person, but he may or may not be a communalist. However, all communalists do believe in a political identity based on religion. The communalists, they are fighting on the behalf of their religion. Communalists cultivate an aggressive political identity and are prepared to attack everyone who does not share their identity. One of the characteristic features of communalism is its claim that religious identity overrides everything else. Communalism is an especially important issue in India because it has been a recurrent source of tension and violence. Why? Because India is a multilingual country, multi-religious country. That's why communalism is a very important fact, social fact in our India. Now, my question is, suppose the question is write a short note on communalism in India. First questions we have discussed about the communalism. Now my question is write a short note on communalism in India. What we will write? You have to write it like a point. First you can write communalism is said to be an aggressive political ideology linked to religion. I also said it. In the English language, communal means something related to a community or collectivity as different from an individual. All all communalists do believe in a political identity based on religion. Communalists cultivate an aggressive political identity and are prepared to um, attack the individual or the general people who does not share their identity. One of the characteristic features of communalism is its claim that religious identity overrides everything else. Whether one is poor or rich, whatever one's occupation, caste or political beliefs, it is religion alone that counts. So, communalism is an especially important issue in India because it has been a recurrent source of tension and violence. During different communal rites, people become faceless members of their respective communities. They are willing to kill, rape, and loot members of other communities in order to redeem their pride, to protect their home, etc. Another question is, what do you mean by the cultural diversity, or what do you mean by the cultural diversity on the behalf of India? You can face the questions differently, like write a short note about the cultural diversity. How cultural diversity took place in our country. Present day cultural diversity is a challenges. So these different kinds of questions you can face. But the answer is same. Cultural identities are very powerful, then can arouse intense passions and are often able to mobilize large numbers of people. Cultural differences are accompanied by economic and social inequalities, and this further complicates things. Measures to address the inequalities or injustices suffered by one community can provoke oppositions from other communities. These situations is made worse than scarce resources like river water, jobs, or the government funds have to be shared. So what I said, cultural diversity. Why? Cultural diversity is present due to the differences or due to the variations of language, religion, regions. That's why the cultural diversity are present. Another things, cultural diversity is present because different regions peoples, they have different food habits, they have different dressing style, they have different language, they worship different gods. Okay, in this way you have to write the questions answer. So students, today I have discussed lots of questions from the chapter Challenges of Cultural Diversity. Challenges of cultural diversity. From the chapter, you can also face different types of MCQ, like the MCQ is like everyone has a motherland, a mother tongue, a family, a faith. This signifies another feature of community identity. That is what? All these things like the family, mother tongue, hmm, faith, all these things are what? It's achieved, conditional, universal, localized. Which one is right? Achieved, conditional, universal, or localized? It's universal. So students, in this way you have to practice the questions with answer. Now the chapter challenges of cultural diversity I have discussed a lot. Now overally, I want to discuss about the questions like the patterns of social inequality and exclusions. Explain the three key principles of stratification. Stratifications we have already studied it. Three key principles that help explain social stratification. Now you are thinking that we know about stratification, but Miss is telling about the principles. So what are the principles? Principle means number one, that is social stratification is a characteristics of society, not simply a function of individual differences. Social stratification is a society-wide system that unequally distributed social resources among categories of people with basic technologically little was produced, so only simple social stratification could exist. And with advanced technology, people produce a surplus over and above their basic needs. But social resources are unequally distributed to various social categories regardless of people's innate individual abilities. So first principle is social stratification is a characteristics of society, not simply a function of individual differences. Another principle is social stratification persists over generations. Here you can write, actually it is linked to the family and the inheritance of social resources passed from one generation to the next. The occupational opportunities are decided based on the caste system an individual is born. For example, a Dalit is likely to be confined to traditional occupations such as agricultural labor or the leather work, or with little chance of being able to get high paying white collar or professional office work. Marriage is usually restricted to members of the same caste, ruling out intercaste marriages. It's a second principle. And third principle is social stratification is supported by patterns of belief or ideology. No system of social stratification is likely to persist over generations unless it is widely viewed as being either fair or inevitable. The caste system. Here you can write the example is justified in terms of the opposition of purity and pollution. With the Brahmin designated as the most superior and the Dalit as the most inferior by virtue of their birth and occupation. People with the greatest social privileges, like the Brahmins, express the strongest support for a system of stratification such as caste and race. So students, from the chapter The Challenges of Cultural Diversity and our previous chapter, that is social inequality and exclusion, today I have discussed lots of questions, very basic questions from the chapters, because all the questions are very common, like social stratification, social exclusion, what do you mean the community identity, or collective conscience, all terms are very common from the chapter. So students, I'm requesting to all of you, please go through the chapter and side by side try to revise various kinds of questions with their appropriate solutions. If you will face any problems or any types of queries, please you can note it down now, and in the time of Zoom class you please clear it out. Okay, so this much only. Thank you everyone.